He hoped the bombardment had killed them. The eggs would have hatched a few months before, while he was with the fleet. 4 little fledglings would be crying for their mother, who would coo softly to soothe them and tuck them in under her wing. Their nest was on the 40th floor in a downtown tower in Billows. She would have drawn the shades to dim the city lights and muffle the sounds below for their first week's breathing. But those shades wouldn't stop the sound or light of fallen shells. The air raid sirens on Harvest would have shrieked too late. The battle in orbit had distracted too many of the planet's radars with data uplinks to the fleet. All the debris swirling around from 10,000 shattered ships rendered them useless anyway. By the time they saw the shells depart the crossfire, they were already streaking across the atmosphere. He hoped Billows was one of those cities taken out on the first pass. He hoped that the shells landed true. He could see the dazzlingly bright impacts all the way from his post in the Admiral's flagship, but had no time to tell where they were landing. If the shells strayed too far, then the shock wave would have toppled the tower and led to a horrifying fall and the lethal crush of rubble. But if the shells landed close enough, all that kinetic energy would incinerate his family well before they ever got the chance to feel it. He hoped so badly that his mate had died clutching their young, her gentle coos drowning out all the madness of the world. He knew there was a fate worse than death in store if the enemy captured them. Thankfully, the lieutenant wasn't on duty when the Admiral ordered the bombardment against the humans. Harvest and Earth shared from orbit wispy whites, deep blues, and verdant greens. He didn't know if he could withstand the cruelty of his imagination had he watched this round of shells fall himself. Only now, with the weight of an important task upon him, not to mention the Admiral's own gaze, did he start to relive the past. His claw tensed up before he could press the button. His eyes glazed over with grief until a beak tapped him on his shoulder.
"When you're ready, Lieutenant,"
Admiral Roundclaw encouraged him. The lieutenant blinked hard. He scanned the prompt on his screen one more time, prepared by the xenographer standing in the corner of his eye. He exhaled, then pressed the button to transmit. If not for its bare metal walls and complete lack of any athletic equipment, Max could easily mistake this place for his high school gym. It was a room right about the same size, though it took him a long while of squinting before he could observe anything under the harsh light. With his mind finally waking up, he realized this was not the landing ship. He quickly looked over himself to see if they had done anything to him. Fortunately, he was still wearing his jeans and jacket. He panicked for a moment upon patting his pockets and finding them empty, but remembered he'd left his wallet, keys, and phone with the Army in Orioles Park. Other than that, everything felt anatomically correct with him, though his inner ear was still protesting the lack of gravity. Though this room was much larger by volume than the landing ship's interior, a rough head count told him well less than half the people he remembered were with him now. They had all woken up not far from the only visible feature of the room, a large hatch through which they must have been brought in. He bounced along the wall and found they had no way of opening it from here, nothing that resembled a lever or button from the movies anyway.
"Find anything?"
A familiar voice asked. Max turned to see his old seatmate from the landing ship. Standing up, he looked a lot smaller and thinner than Max, even if he was older.
"Nothing,"
Max sighed.
"I think they separated us."
The man turned and counted the room on his tongue.
"There's only 100 here, us included,"
he confirmed.
"Guess they don't want another riot."
The man nodded, continuing to search the room.
"I don't see that girl the bird hit."
"She probably just got sent to another room like this,"
Max suggested, though his gut didn't agree with it. They watched the rest of their group get up and start chatting quietly amongst each other.
"See anyone else you know?"
His seatmate asked. Max surveyed the crowd.
"No. You?"
"No."
Max offered his hand and his brother's name.
"Well, I'm Richie."
His seatmate shook it.
Ishan.
Someone got off the floor a little too quickly in front of them. She started flying toward the ceiling, unable to stop.
Help me!
She sputtered.
Here, grab my hand.
Another woman reached up, but when they caught a grip of each other, she started floating away too. Max rushed forward and caught the woman's leg, but the first lost her grip when he dragged them both down. She continued sailing into the middle of the empty compartment. Soon she was too high up for anyone to reach. She waved her arms about, and that only managed to bring her to a stop about halfway towards the ceiling. She was gushing tears now, little glittering droplets that clung to her face. The crowd mulled over what to do while she begged for someone to help her down.
I got her!
That someone said. The crowd parted, and Max and Ishan saw a man bend down into a tight ball. He launched himself like a swimmer off the wall, his arms ahead of him like Superman. The human torpedo cruised towards the girl in trouble. They collided with a dull thud that made everyone wince, but they continued flying on his momentum to the ceiling, where he helped her launch herself back toward the crowd below. When he launched himself back, he got a solid round of cheers and high fives. This time he didn't throw up.
Huh, we have the acrobat with us too.
Max chuckled. Ishan opened his mouth to speak, but something buzzed at them from a previously hidden speaker above the hatch. They whirled around to see a rectangular section of the wall start to shimmer like a mirage, its shining luster fading to a black surface. It switched on, and the humans realized immediately what it was. A screen. These aliens looked much larger on television than the one they had the previous misfortune of meeting. There was one seated, looking directly into the camera. On his shoulder another, much older-looking one, if only by the bald crown on the top of his head and his lackluster colors, watched him speak. The younger bird twittered at a practiced pace. The humans chattered among themselves, wondering what the alien was saying. The translation came a few seconds later.
Humans, you are now on board the flagship Gladiator of the 11th Fleet of the Galactic Union Navy. Admiral Roundclaw commanding.
Max grumbled under his breath.
Great, now they have a navy.
We do not wish to make you our slaves. We do not wish to conquer your world. We wish for both of our species to live in peace and friendship.
Tell that to the Koreans, fucker.
Someone jeered. The crowd bristled in angry agreement. The bird paused. Apparently this was a two-way transmission, since he looked to his senior with a questioning glance, seeing if he wanted to continue. The older one nodded.
Our peoples share a common enemy,
Who?
Ishan called.
with whom we have been engaged in war for 1 year.
Ishan folded his arms, unsatisfied with the lack of detail. The bird's eyes grew cold and distant as he read off the next line of his script.
The conflict has devastated us. In total, we believe 11 systems have been occupied by the enemy. We believe there are at least 20 billion casualties, almost all civilians. The other 90 billion,
The bird swallowed.
have been made slaves of the enemy.
Someone went as far as to shout.
You deserve it.
The bird recoiled. His eyes watered. The older bird squawked something untranslated to him. Eventually he regained his voice.
We have lost our homes. We have lost our families. You have lost yours for a time, but you may lose them forever if we lose this war. We have known about the human race for some time. We have kept detailed records of your species. Those records have been captured by the enemy. If we are defeated, they will inevitably come to conquer Earth.
Max and Ishan glanced at each other. They shared a silent thought. If something had the birds who destroyed the Korean peninsula this scared, it was worth paying attention.
We believe, however, that the enemy's forces can be divided. They are held together by one individual, whose death will break apart his bickering alliance.
The screen now displayed a planet that looked much like Earth. It had deep blue oceans, tufts of white clouds, and continents stretched across its surface. Peaks rose and valleys sank. Deserts glimmered and rivers coursed. The only difference was that 2 suns shone on it.
This is Tovakshom.
The digital voice said.
You are going to invade it.